Greetings, my beautiful lovelies, it's Emmy. Welcome back. Today's video is sponsored by Simple Health, which makes birth control simple, convenient, and affordable with online prescriptions and free home delivery. If you'd like to try Simple Health yourself, click the link down below or go to www.simplehealth.com/Emmy and use the code Emmy. Big thanks to Simple Health for sponsoring this video. So today I'm going to be making cheese, but not any ordinary cheese, because this cheese is made with dried milk powder. We're going to take this dry powdery stuff and transform it into mozzarella style cheese. Now, I've never heard of this before, but a couple of lovelies sent me a link to the Mudbrooker's video. I'll put a link down below, where he demonstrates very thoroughly how to take that and make it into cheese. Sounds absolutely fascinating. This is not the first time I've made cheese before. If you've missed my other mozzarella cheese video where I used this kit, it worked beautifully. I did not use dry milk. I used regular whole milk for that video, but it worked famously. It was super fun to make. I made a soft, kind of stretchy style, fresh mozzarella cheese. And like most cheese making, the ingredients are pretty simple. Milk, some kind of coagulant. In this case, we're using Junket brand rennet tablets. Rennet actually is derived from the gut of calves. It helps them digest milk. So this rennet is not appropriate for vegetarians or vegans, but there are vegetarian rennets available. So you need some of that. We're also going to need some salt and some citric acid. And citric acid can be found in the canning section at the grocery store. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and do this. So I've got 1 gallon of filtered water in this pot. Now to our gallon of water, we're gonna add 6 cups of dry milk powder. And we wanna do this kind of slowly with not a lot of agitation because we don't wanna make too many bubbles or foam. Ooh, I've never used milk powder before, but boy, it's dusty. Whew. Basically rehydrating the milk powder and turning it back into milk. It's so dusty. So this actually is non-fat milk powder. So the fat has been removed, and this recipe actually incorporates more fat into the milk by adding a bit of butter. Okay, so we got the milk dissolved in there now. All right, I'm gonna give this a taste. Whoa, that tastes like a dairy product. Doesn't taste exactly like milk, but this is reconstituted dry milk. So it does have a little bit of a kind of oil slickness on your tongue, but it definitely has a cooked milk flavor to it. Doesn't taste like ordinary milk at all. So now we're going to reserve 1.5 cups of this. We're going to heat that up till it's about 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. We're also going to melt 1.5 sticks of butter in the microwave. Let me go do that. So now that our butter is melted and both the milk and the butter are at about 115 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to emulsify them together in a blender. On high for about 1 minute. Alrighty, it's gonna get noisy. So I think we're at the point now. Oh, that's steam. Like, what's coming out of here? It's just steam. Now we're going to take our emulsified butter and milk and add that to our other milk. So I've got 1/2 cup of water here, and I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. This is what makes Sour Patch Kids sour. Wow, this powder is very fine, and it goes airborne pretty easily. So mix that well. Our rennet comes in these little tablets, and Mudbrooker crushes his before adding it to water. But we don't want to add this to water too quickly because it will fail to coagulate. So we're going to bring this up to temperature before we add our rennet. I'm going to leave it in the packet, and I'm going to use my pestle here to kind of crush it. The reason why I'm not putting this directly into my mortar and pestle is that I use my mortar and pestle to grind garlic often, and I don't want my mozzarella cheese to necessarily taste like garlic. So just in case, I'm just crushing it in its packet. So now we can add our dissolved citric acid to our milk. Stir that in there. So now we're going to heat this up to 90 degrees. Once we get to about 85, I'm going to go ahead and add our rennet. Look at that, we've got some curds just from the addition of the citric acid. That's great. A rennet tablet, and I'm going to combine it with some water. We want to keep this in motion because we don't want to scorch our milk on the bottom of the pot. Okay, once this reaches 90 degrees, kill the heat, add our rennet, and then stir this for 30 seconds. So now we cover this and we let this rest for 30 minutes to allow the rennet to react with the milk and form our curds. We don't want to disturb this at all. I don't want to nudge it or anything. It should gel. Now, this is dry milk that we've reconstituted, so the physical characteristics of this will be a little bit different than what we would normally see if we used regular milk. It will still thicken and congeal, but the curds will actually be on the bottom rather than floating on the top. At least that's what I've been told, so we'll find out in about 30 minutes how this turns out. Okay, so while we're waiting for the milk to coagulate, let me tell you a little bit more about Simple Health. Now, this may not apply to some of you, but most of my viewers are actually women, so I think this is a really important tool that I want to share with you because I wish something like this would have existed when I was younger. So Simple Health makes access to birth control really easy, convenient, and affordable with online prescriptions and free home delivery. So this is something that I actually had to think about when I was about to graduate from college and no longer had access to my student clinic. What was I going to do? So something like Simple Health would have been such a great tool for me. Had this existed, all I would have had to do was go online, fill out a health profile that would have been reviewed by a licensed doctor. The doctor would then see if I was a good candidate for birth control, but since I was already using birth control, that was a no-brainer. And in the case that I needed a new prescription or wanted to reevaluate it, that would have been done. And then I would have gotten the birth control delivered directly to my doorstep, reoccurringly. I wouldn't have to worry about any kinds of lapses. I wouldn't have to take any time to go to the pharmacy. It would just arrive at my doorstep. Such a relief. I can't tell you how many times I would search and say, oh, is this my last pack? And I wouldn't have to worry about that because it would just arrive as it should on time. What peace of mind. Simple Health is not a replacement for routine checkups with your doctor. I know this might be a bit of a controversial subject for some of you, but I think it's so important that women have control of their own health and be able to have access to tools that can help them make big decisions that will affect the rest of their lives. So if you think Simple Health might be something you'd like to try for free, click the link down below or go to www.simplehealth.com/Emmy and use the code Emmy. Big thanks to Simple Health for sponsoring this video. Now let's go ahead and check on our cheese. Alrighty, so it's been a half an hour. I'm back. The milk and the rennet have had time to do their thing, and now we are ready to cut this into curds. Now we're going to take our bread knife and cut this into 1-inch chunks. Oh yes, I am seeing some curds and whey. So the curds are the cheese pieces and the whey is the watery milk. Okay, so we're cutting this. It looks a bit like tofu. Have you seen my tofu making video? That one was pretty great too. Okay, so we're going to cut this way, and then we're going to cut across. We're going to heat this to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. We're not going to stir it. We don't want to disturb the curds too much. We're just going to turn the pot to gently distribute the heat. All right, 115, 116. So we're at temperature now. So ready to move on to the next step. And it came up to temperature pretty quickly. Look at that. Isn't that so great? We're going to take a colander that is lined with cheesecloth. We're actually going to use the cheesecloth for what it's made for, to separate the curds from the whey. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. It looks just like tofu. It's so cool. Oh, this is looking great. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's beautiful. So on the top, we've got kind of these small little bits here. And then way at the bottom, we've got the nice big hunks of cheese. That's a lot of cheese. This is 6 cups of dry milk powder. So now we're going to gather up the cheesecloth and try to remove as much of the whey as possible before we knead it. Seems like, there we go. Still a lot of whey in there, so we're going to squeeze some of that out. And so here is the mass of cheese, and now we are ready to knead this. So remove the cheesecloth, All right, so into the microwave for 1 minute. This might vary depending on the strength or power of your microwave. Mine is a 700-watt microwave, so we'll see what it looks like after a minute. The cheese is releasing more of the whey, and because I happen to have it, I'm going to use this cheese salt that I have. But regular salt would be fine. 1.5 teaspoons. I'm going to put some nitrile gloves on because this cheese is going to be pretty warm. And hopefully this will give me a little bit of shielding from molten hot cheese. We'll see. Okay, so now we're just going to knead this and squeeze it until it's nice and shiny. I'm going to do this over my large bowl. So this is starting to get there. I think I need to warm this cheese up just a little bit more. And now we're just going to stretch it and get everything to combine together. And more whey should release out. Ooh, it's hot. This looks like a mummy out of a horror movie or something. This does not look like mozzarella cheese. It looks very dry. It's not cohesive. It's not shiny. I wonder if I cooked it too high of a temperature. Let's try heating up again. Let's see if this helps melt it into a pile. Maybe. Okay, maybe it did need some more heat. Okay, I'm gonna heat this up some more. Just melt it into submission, right? Okay, let's try this again. So even more whey has come out, and ooh, it is very hot. Oh my gosh, like too hot to handle. Okay, so let's use our spatula, and this is looking much better. Okay. So while this is hot, I'm gonna try to stretch it until it's glossy. Oh boy, that's hot. I'm glad to see that it's melting. I'm just turning it onto itself like this. And getting all the strands to kind of glue together. I'm making a mess. Okay, you can see it better now. Ooh, that's so hot. Okay. Making it into a ball. This is very different style cheese than my first mozzarella cheese video, obviously because this is made with dry milk, but this is much more of a solid cheese. While the mozzarella cheese I made before was a little bit softer. This has more of a kind of gray cast to it rather than being white. And I'm noticing as I'm kneading it more, it's becoming more and more firm to the touch. But it is turning into cheese, amazingly. I think that's it. Homemade mozzarella cheese made out of dry milk powder. I thought I was gonna have to do this recipe again. I'm so happy that I do not. Look at this, it's cheese. It's cheese. I got a ball of cheese from 6 cups of dried milk powder. I'm so happy. Yay! Okay. Alrighty, now for the best part, we're gonna actually taste our homemade cheese. It looks pretty good. Now that it's cooled off, I've noticed it has pretty firm texture. I've got some tomatoes out of the garden. I dressed this up with a little bit of Italian parsley. This would be basil, but we're coming into fall now and all my basil is gone. So we'll just have to do parsley, all right? Alrighty, I can't wait to taste this. So let's go ahead and cut into this. Ooh, it almost has a crust. Mudbrooker said that when you store this, you should store this with a little bit of whey in the refrigerator to make sure it stays nice and moist. Otherwise it tends to dry out. So let's cut into this. Ooh, it definitely has a squeak to it. Reminds me a little bit of cheese curds, fresh cheese curds. There it is. This definitely has more of a texture of like store-bought mozzarella cheese, the kind that you would shred to put on top of pizza. Kind of like that. So you can see that it has some stretch to it. And it looks a lot like string cheese. All right, let's give this a taste. Here we go. Itadakimasu. It's definitely drier in texture and in mouthfeel than the last batch of mozzarella cheese that I made. It's squeakier too. This is a little bit more like fresh cheese curds. It has that kind of squeak. It's a little bouncier and chewier than cheese curds though. You hear that? The amount of salt that was used in there is pretty good. It's not overly salty, but I feel like you cannot escape the flavor of the dry milk powder. It's distinctive, it's present, it definitely tastes cooked, has a cooked, dry milk powder flavor to it. It tastes like non-dairy creamer. It's not unpleasant, but it doesn't have that nice milky flavor of cheese that is made with fresh milk, because this was made with dried milk. And while I'm pleasantly surprised that you can make cheese from dry milk powder, I don't really care for the flavor. It definitely tastes like dry milk powder. It tastes like non-dairy creamer. It tastes processed. It actually tastes a lot like the cheese powder that you get when you buy a package of instant mac and cheese. But having said that, I am totally impressed and shocked that you can actually make cheese from dry milk powder. You can do it. It totally, absolutely works. But does it taste as good as cheese made from regular milk? No, it doesn't. How could it? This was made from dried milk. Milk that has all of its fat removed, and we injected it with some butter, and we mixed it with rennet to make cheese. And it does make the cheese, which is impressive in itself. It doesn't taste like regular cheese. It never could. So there you have it, mozzarella cheese made out of dry milk powder. Thank you guys so much for suggesting it. I'll put the original video down in the description down below in case you want to see it. And big thanks to Simple Health for sponsoring this video. If you'd like to try Simple Health for free, click the link down below or go to www.simplehealth.com/Emmy and use the code Emmy. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you guys learned something. Please share this video with your friends, follow me on social media, like this video, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Toodaloo. Take care. Bye. Boom, 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 boom.